For the first time since 1991, the Buffalo Bills are 4-0 in the AFC East in the driver's seat after a 24-21 win over the New England Patriots, the first in Orchard Park since 2011. That's 8 previous games the Patriots have come to Buffalo. They've beaten the Bills. That all changed on Sunday. And I'm Matt Parrino, joined as always by Ryan Talbot. This is the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast, the post-game edition, and we're trying something new this week. What's up, everybody in the comments? We got a couple people flowing in already on Facebook, on YouTube. If you got comments on Twitter as well, throw your questions, throw your comments, give us your feelings right now. We're doing something a little bit different this week. We're going live at 7:30 in the 7:30 to 8:10 window. It's in between the late games before Sunday Night Football because I think we've noticed over the first few weeks of the season as we're trying to get into a good rhythm here. It's tough, Ryan, at the while the games are still going on, whether it be the night game or the late games. I think people want to watch some football. So we're in the middle right now, and there's a lot to get into, with this Bills game. 24-21, victorious. Obviously, the big play at the end, Justin Zimmer, forced fumble. Dean Marlowe recovers. Cam Newton, very sad and frustrated on the sideline. The Bills are 6-2. Your big thought, your first takeaway from this game.
Well, first of all, before the first big takeaway, 1991, you said, since they started 4-0 in the AFC. I was 7 years old at that point. I was probably playing with my Hulk Hogan action figures on the floor as those games were on. That's wild, first and foremost. First thoughts, you never know who's going to step up and help you win these games. Now, obviously, on offense, it was the run game today, that 1-2 rushing attack with the Buffalo's young backfield. But then at the end of the game, you mentioned it, Justin Zimmer, Dean Marlowe, Tyler Matakevich had a huge play on special teams where the Patriots tried to catch the Bills napping. So, these games just show you never know who's going to step up when their number is called, who's going to make that play that helps you win these close games. And these division games are always going to be close. These teams know each other better than anyone else. So if you go across the board, Buffalo's first win over the Jets, that was more of a blowout than the final score indicated, but the second game was close. The Miami game went back and forth, and this game was right down to the wire. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Bills can't win the big game and pull ahead and win comfortably, because we really haven't seen that this year. But it just goes to show you all these games are going to be competitive. I don't care what the team's records are. Yeah, the Patriots look like they're going to be maybe sellers at the trade deadline for the first time in a long time after falling here, only having 2 wins at this point in the season, which is something that, bow down to you real quick. I believe back in the summer, you were the one that said Miami second place, New England third in this division. And right now that prediction's looking pretty good. But you just never know. And the bottom line is, I saw one of the first comments, not an impressive win. Maybe not, but they won. They're 4-0 in the division. They're 6-2 at the midway point of the year. If you sat there and you said that you wouldn't take 6-2 at midseason, you're lying. I'm sorry, you're lying, because any Bills fan at that point would take a 6-2 record based on the schedule. And based on what we thought it would take to maybe win this division in 2020.
So let's start there, because there's a bunch of players I want to talk about, some things that happened in this game. Obviously, we're going to dive into all of that. But let's start with how you should feel, after a win like this, because you're right. You watch this game, you watch the guys that weren't playing on the Patriots side of things, and it's clear the Bills are the better football team than the New England Patriots. But what we've learned in this league, it doesn't matter week to week. All of that gets thrown out the window when you get on the football field. You got to remember, this is 11 on 11. These are NFL players. And while this might be a bad team right now, this was a desperate team on this Sunday. This was a team that was fighting for their season. This was a prideful Cam Newton that has played terrible since he returned from COVID, who wanted to come out here and get this thing back on track. And he was fighting all the way into the fourth quarter when he was trying to lead his team back. The Bills got on the board first. Patriots kind of hung around. Then the Bills come out in the second half. They go up 14-6. The Patriots come back and they answer. Tie the game on a 2-point conversion. I mean, every time the Bills made a play or went up in this game, the Patriots found an answer. And in the end of the game, you need somebody to show up and make a play. And they made enough plays to win this game. And really, if you look at, I tweeted about Josh Allen's game, and we'll get into that quite a bit. I thought Josh Allen today, his game was the perfect game that you want to ask him to play against Bill Belichick. Don't make any mistakes. He made one, but I think Stephon Diggs, we didn't talk to him after the game, but he put it on his shoulders. It looked like it was like maybe he kind of stopped on the route. It looked like Josh Allen wanted it to be a slant. He threw it up there to let Stephon Diggs, who's so great in contested catch situations, make a play on the ball. Stephon Gilmore's not there, and he just didn't make it. I thought Josh Allen eliminated almost all of the turnover-worthy plays, had a chance. They were driving and had a chance to throw a touchdown, and Gabriel Davis went right through his arms. Everybody take a big breath. You are sitting at a place after 8 weeks of an NFL football season with a 6-2 football team, depressed that you didn't win good enough. Just think back to some of those days over the past 20 years when, Trent Edwards went off the track. EJ Manuel, JP Lossman never got it started. And you're sitting here now with a 6-2 football team. I don't want to dress it up too much. There's a lot of things that you can be unhappy about from this game. But let's just start off there and just take a little bit of the stress off, because I think everybody's stressed out, right? It's a big week coming up. There's a big election coming up. Everybody's got a lot of stress in their life in 2020. COVID-19 just taking over the world. You got a 6-2 football team, and you should be happy about that. That's my piece. That's my opening rant, if you will.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great opening rant. And one area that Josh Allen really impressed me today was up at the line, where he was calling audibles and he was changing the play and he was motioning guys, moving guys, because every time he did that, he seemed to be calling the right call, whether maybe it was going to be a pass play and he turned it into a run, and then the Bills ran to the left side and picked up big chunks here and there. He still completed over 60% of his passes. He threw a dime, like you said, to Gabriel Davis on the run on a third down play that 9 times out of 10, based on what we've seen so far, Gabriel Davis is going to haul that in. He tried to catch it with his hands. He had enough time to kind of move his body over and get in front of that too if he really wanted to. Just one of those plays that Gabriel Davis, I'm sure, would love to have back. Everything we've seen from him thus far, that's not the type of play he usually makes. He usually comes through. So Josh Allen was great. The run game was outstanding. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but welcome back, Jon Feliciano. The Bills are going to, he's in the final year. But go ahead.
I want to get to Feliciano, but before we do, 2 quick things on Allen. Number one, the big takeaway for me today, and he joked about it in the post-game press conference about listening to some Frank Sinatra before the game to kind of calm his nerves a little bit. He didn't come out in this game overwhelmed, starry-eyed, deer in the headlights. I didn't get that from Josh Allen today. He was directing traffic. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew what he needed to do. He was looking to see what the Patriots were doing, and he was responding. Like you mentioned, audibling. That play, I wrote about it in my observations to set up the second Zach Moss touchdown, was so impressive because he went through his reads. He was waiting on John Brown to get free down the field. It never materialized. He let Stephon Diggs work back to him. He hit him over the middle. And what he said kind of came into fruition all year long. He's been talking about, I need to do a better job of getting the ball in my playmakers' hands, letting them make plays. That's what he did. That was a huge play in the game that sustained a drive. And those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for in a game like this against Bill Belichick. Yeah, where the number is great now, 154 yards, an interception. I think he had his passer rating was somewhere around 65. It doesn't jump off the page at you, but 61% completion percentage in a game where the previous 3 combined was at about 47% completion rate. That's a significant improvement. And what did they do today, the Bills? They made a concerted effort to run the football. Jon Feliciano was back in the mix, and they gave the ball to Devin Singletary. They gave the ball to Zach Moss a ton. They combined for over 160 yards. The running game finally got going. Give us your impressions of Mr. Feliciano. Mongo back in the mix.
Yeah, start talking contract negotiations if he's going to play like this. This is the final year of his deal. This run game has struggled all season long. And maybe what's more impressive to me is the fact that he starts at left guard. The Bills drive down the field, score. And then they lose Mitch Morse and doesn't miss a beat, moves to center, still laying great blocks out there. And obviously you want Mitch Morse in this lineup. You want Morse and you want Feliciano side by side. But the fact that he can just slide from one spot to the other without missing a beat, still laying those blocks on, dragging Zach Moss into the end zone on that second touchdown. Feliciano did so many good things today, and you kept seeing the Bills run to the left. And it's no coincidence. It's because that's where Feliciano was. We've talked about what he brings in terms of the attitude, in terms of the nastiness. But the most important thing he brings are running lanes for Devin Singletary and for Zach Moss. And you got to see what those two backs could do when there was a little bit of open space for them when they first got the ball. Then Devin Singletary, who's always good to make a guy miss, he was making a guy miss 5-6 yards down the field and getting a few yards here and there. You had Zach Moss shutting off tacklers and getting big gains. At the end of the day, both of them were almost averaging 6 yards per carry. That's how impressive they were. So, at the end of the day, they said, hey, we're kind of getting some balance here on this offense now. The run game is going. That's going to open up some things for the pass game. And the wins today prevented, I think, the pass game for either team to really work for either their benefits. Now, we'll see what it's like next week. There's a struggling secondary that the Bills get to play next week. I think they can move the ball through the air against them, and they're going to probably need to, the way that Seattle has been playing and how good they've been on offense. So that could end up being a shootout. But the Bills are doing what they need to do to get by. They're winning how they need to win. This was a game where the weather conditions were not going to permit them to throw the ball 40 times, and they had to go to a run game that had not been working to date. It worked today. The backs looked great. Feliciano looked great. And that's, again, one of those steps there where they're 6-2 at this point. The run game should get better as long as that line stays healthy and as long as those backs stay healthy. And then the passing game is going to benefit and hopefully open back up for Josh Allen because of the run game.
I felt like a broken record all summer, late summer, when we were talking about this offensive line and what I thought it could look like and what I thought they were missing when Jon Feliciano suffered this injury. And I said the biggest thing isn't necessarily, who he is as a player. He's a great player. Like, I think we realized last year how good of a find he was in terms of what he brought to this offensive line. I think he has a familiarity with Bobby Johnson. He knows what he wants him to be as an offensive lineman, how to execute. He's very athletic. He can pull. He can do all those things. He's versatile, as we saw today. Being able to just move quickly from left guard to center after Mitch Morse went out. And there's no real update on that other than, he's sustained a concussion. I believe it's his 6th concussion of his NFL career documented. I wrote about him last offseason, right before the start of last season when he had the concussion in training camp. So you can check that out. I tweeted it. But I think Jon Feliciano, the most important thing that he brings is an identity to this offensive line. And, he's not only is he like nasty and aggressive, he's vocal and he's really smart. And that's one of the things that Josh Allen mentioned today after the game about what Jon brings, is that he's an excellent communicator. And that's so important because, one thing I always notice about Jon Feliciano is, pre-snap, he is, as much as Josh Allen is back there moving his hands and talking up and down the line, Feliciano's doing the same thing. He's touching Mitch Morse. He's touching the outside guy. Last year it was Cody Ford tying second. Now it's going to be Deion Dawkins and Mitch Morse when he's at left guard and Morse is healthy. But I thought today the offensive line felt more like, at home as a group because of what he brings and the stability and comfort that he brings.
Yeah, and just on that left side of the line, if you do get Mitch Morse back, that's a great side to run after. We know what Deion Dawkins has done. He's improved every year, and the Bills, give him a big deal because of that. We know what Feliciano can do in his 2 seasons here, this being his 2nd season. And we know that Mitch Morse is having a great year as well today. So like you said, hopefully he's back soon. But I want to address one thing I just saw in the comments is someone said Ryan Bates plays all 5 positions, but none of them well. Let's hold off on that. I think Ryan Bates could end up being an answer for this offensive line, but he probably was not comfortable with the shotgun snaps. That's the best rationale I saw. But he came in that first series And he made some great blocks for Zach Moss, where Zach Moss had a big chunk play and then scored a touchdown. So I did want to address that really quickly. I think that Bates can play a role on this offensive line if Mitch Morse is out for an extended time. It's just he's not used to delivering those kinds of snaps. So you probably have to get him that work at practice. And then if you can have Bates at center, not Morse, I'm sorry. If you can have Feliciano at left guard and then Dawkins, I think that line could even be even better. You want your best 5 guys out there, and Bates did well in his short action, but I think the Bills probably said, well, wait a minute. We're going to be in the shotgun a lot today, and he's not used to that. So they were proactive, and it probably ended up being the right decision. But hold off on the whole doesn't play any of them well, because when he was out there today, he played very, very well on that opening drive when called upon.
Well, I was ready to have a much different tone about that decision when it happened. And I tweeted about it like, this is interesting, kind of puzzling, I think I said to a few people, because I thought Ryan Bates did come in and they had themselves a really nice drive. I thought they answered well, but I will give credit to Brian Dable and Sean McDermott. I thought that Ike Bucker played really well today. I thought he answered the bell, and maybe that was almost, in his first career start last week, didn't go as well as they probably would have hoped against a really good Jets front. They want to give him another. That's one of the things that we have realized the Jets are good at, and that is on their defensive line. Quinton Williams, I was reading today, was an absolute monster against the Chiefs. And so I think that maybe you want to give Ike Bucker another chance, and it looks like he took advantage of that. I tried to watch a little bit of the game back in the press box after the game, and I thought he played well. I thought he held up pretty well. Not as many of those head-scratching plays where it felt like he got pushed back into Josh Allen. I thought Josh had a couple really nice pockets, and I noticed Ike Bucker playing well. So that's a big piece of this. But yeah, to your point on Ryan Bates, hold off on that. I definitely am I'm a Ryan Bates believer. I'm a fan of his. I like his versatility. I almost feel like he's a kind of guy that's built in the same way that a Jon Feliciano is from a versatility perspective. Now, this is the Shout Buffalo Bills Football Podcast. We are so pumped to have you guys all in here watching. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find us on all the audio platforms: Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, all of them. Go there, even though you're watching live. If you have to run, if you came in late, you'll get it on the audio platform right after the show. Subscribe, give us a rating and review. We really appreciate it. We are the Shout Podcast, brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets, your neighborhood store with more. I'm going to have to take a run to Tops after this to get a little food. I haven't eaten since I came home from the stadium. We're going to get into the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of stuff to talk about on the defense. We'll talk a little bit about next week with the Seattle Seahawks game coming up. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Ready for football? Tops is, with ready-to-serve fan favorites everyone will cheer for. Delicious family or party packs like pizza, sliders, fried chicken, barbecue, or beef on weck, starting at only $4 per serving. Perfect for game day and any day. Only at Tops.
So drop your comments, drop your questions. We're going to be cycling through that as we go through tonight. We're appreciative of you guys joining us on this Sunday post-game 7:30 to 8:10-ish window. Bills 24, Patriots 21, the first win by the Bills over the Patriots in Orchard Park since 2011. Quite an amazing stat to think about in terms of how much the Patriots have dominated this rivalry over the years. And, I thought that Bill Belichick got his team ready to play today. I thought they showed up, with, all the things they were up against, without Julian Edelman, without Stephon Gilmore, without all the pieces on defense that, have opted out, and N'Keal Harry was out. They had practice squad guys out there, playing at receiver. I thought they really answered the bell. And sometimes a team up against it that much can be a dangerous team, as we learned today. I thought they played pretty well. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, Ryan. And if you had to say, let me pose a question. The biggest concern right now on this defense, which I thought for the most part, even though they gave up, over 340 yards of offense to the Patriots, I thought they played pretty well considering all things. They played okay. What's the biggest concern right now in this defense?
Linebacker play. That's where I'm most concerned. Matt Milano seems to be on a pitch count, which I get. He said this week, I didn't tear the pec completely. Well, he's obviously not 100%. I don't know if he'll get back to 100% this year, and they're limiting his snaps. They're putting him out there on certain plays in certain situations. And for as good as he is, even not at 100%, he missed a big tackle in that game on a big third down play, and it almost looked like he couldn't extend himself on that tackle because of the peck, possibly. Tremaine Edmonds, I thought, started pretty well in the game, and then his play fell off. I thought he struggled. He's not having a great year. He also went down with a little bit of an injury for a time. But he looked like he was okay injury wise. We'll get more of an update on that later this week. And yeah, I've seen it in the comments. Everyone, AJ Klein, it's worrisome. I agree. I almost wanted to joke where someone said AJ Klein question mark and be like, just like an AJ Klein tackle, you guys missed it. But no, we haven't talked about him yet. Listen, he had 2 big opportunities today to make a play, and he whiffed both times. You shouldn't be getting big boyed by James White. And that's what happened to him on one play. He kind of got stiff armed and thrown off of James White, where he should have made a tackle on a short pass or a short reception. Third down play, he gets into the backfield and he misses. He misses the play. The Pats get a first down. Now, maybe it's a blessing in disguise because shortly thereafter, Justin Zimmer gets the forced fumble. Dean Marlowe gets the fumble recovery, and the Bills win the game. But he makes that tackle, and then the Patriots have to make a decision. Do we go for it for 4th and inches and try to get this win and try to turn our season around, or do we kick the field goal at that point in time? So he's really struggled. There's no other way to say it. When the Bills brought him in, I said, okay, he's probably athletic enough to do some of the things that Lorenzo Alexander did, but we really haven't seen that. And is Darren Lee going to be the answer once he officially signs here? I don't know.
I don't think it could be much worse, though.
No, I agree with that. And he definitely has the athleticism part working for him. So at least they should be better in that regard. But if there's one unit that I'm most concerned about going into the second half of the season, it's the linebacker play. They have not come close to living up to expectations. Injuries have played a factor. But this unit, I can't believe I'm saying this. I love Lorenzo Alexander. I think he's a very good player, but I didn't think they would miss Lorenzo Alexander as much as they truly are at this point in the season.
Well, he also offered that flexibility to, he played a role that was really great in terms of a pass rusher and, that base third linebacker when they went to the 4-3 package. But he also was a big player. Like I remember 2 years ago in that New England game in New England when he had to play for Milano, he was outstanding. He had like 10 plus tackles. I think he had an interception or a sack or a forced fumble, some big play in that game. And they're just missing that. And I asked Sean McDermott today, I didn't even say I'm going to let him watch the tape and phrase the question a little bit differently tomorrow when we get a chance to talk to him. And I like doing that so he can kind of really get a good look at the game and how, and he may have a take on AJ Klein that, might be a defense of how he's played. But I asked him, how would you say in these first 8 games of AJ Klein as a Buffalo Bill, how would you say he played? And he basically kind of dodged the question a little bit and said, he's a vital part of our organization, our team. He studies hard. He plays any position that we ask him to play. And I'm like, I'm kind of sitting there thinking and agreeing with some of the comments, and that's not the question. The question is, how is he doing? And he has not been playing well. And I look at the stat sheet. And he had 3 tackles today, and I just flashed to how many times I saw him around the ball today, and just by the eye test, those tackle numbers should be much higher. And so I think that they do need to address the linebacker position. I think that Matt Milano is much more hurt than he's even letting on. He talked about it this week. He said it's kind of a partial tear. Who knows how badly torn that is. I don't even think he can really lift that arm up. I went back and watched the play where Rex Burke had spun him out of his cleats and got that first down. He came in and, there was some mention of bad tackle form. That's fine. He does like to hit instead of wrapping up and tackling sometimes. But I thought that the way that he's moving, I almost feel like he's kind of lying his arm that's in the harness at the side of his body, unable to really move it around with any type of comfort. And so I don't think he's the same guy when he can't do that. And so maybe there does need to be some thought put into, okay, how do we get a bunch of guys in here, whether it be by trade, whether it be by signing guys off the street, get them into a competitive situation? That's one thing I think the Bills have done a good job over the years. You think of guys like Jordan Phillips, who have come in off another team's practice squad, or after Jordan Phillips was cut and they brought him over here, implemented him in. And I know those guys don't grow on trees. Those situations aren't happening over the league all the time. but you do need to do your due diligence. One guy in particular, I'm very interested to see how it plays out is Del'Shawn Phillips. I have a story that's kind of in the in the tank, if you will, that I couldn't really release because right as I was finishing it, he got hurt and kind of that whole thing. But I talked to Lovie Smith about Del'Shawn Phillips and, what the Bills have in him. And I think fans are going to be very interested to read that when it comes out. He is on injured reserve right now. He just started practicing last week. So he's a guy that's going to be added in the mix. He's somebody that could come into play over the next 2 weeks if Matt Milano is not healthy enough to go. If they do look at the tape of AJ Klein over the next week and say, we're going to need to dial back this guy's snaps because he's just not getting it done.
Yeah, I had to smirk a little bit when you were talking about that Sean McDermott quote. I got ratioed on Twitter just by repeating what Sean McDermott said. Incredible amounts of resiliency. And like you said, that wasn't answering the question. That wasn't answering the question at all. And a valuable member of the team. I'm just like, oh boy, I guess that's one of those things where you want to watch the tape before you say too much. But yeah, it's worrisome. And you mentioned it. When Phillips comes back, maybe he takes on a bigger role than maybe what people thought or expected early on this year. Tyrell Dodson, maybe when he comes back later this year, he might play a bigger role. They have to start getting some of these liabilities, so to speak, off the field. And that's AJ Klein right now. And that's Taron Johnson right now in the secondary, who we can talk about here in a little bit too. So it's up to the Bills to either find those players. They brought in Daryl Worley for a free agent visit after he was released by the Cowboys, and his tape from the Cowboys, don't watch it. It's really, really bad. But he's played under Sean McDermott. He knows the system. He can play outside. He can play inside. He can play safety. So there's that versatility that McDermott likes. And at this point, maybe playing him in the slot, if you do end up signing him, it's worth it at that point just to see what he can do. Because like you said about AJ Klein, and when I said about Darren Lee, can he be any worse? Because the coverage issues have been real for Taron Johnson this year.
All right, we're cruising along here. If you have any questions, this is the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast. We're reacting to the Bills' 24-21 victory over the New England Patriots this afternoon. A lot of things to, I think there's a lot of things to like. If you're just joining the show now and you missed the open, there's a lot of things to like from the perspective of you can be 6-2 while still not even close to what I think your best can be. I think that this team is still kind of searching for that 100% balanced offense, defense, both sides of the ball, doing things in the run game and the pass game, all complementary. We haven't seen that yet. Even in the games that they've won, you think of the Rams game when they put up 35. I mean, the Rams put up 32. The Raiders, I thought, had some moments that they struggled against them in the first half. And that was a little bit of a closer game than I thought that it should have been based on how they played. So I think that they're still trending in the right direction. And I think they're figuring out little things along the way. I thought that defensively, while they weren't great today, and it was a bad Patriots offense, they still only allowed 21 points, which I know, it's the Patriots. It's a really bad offense, but I think that they're figuring things out and filling some holes while they do. I saw a comment in here, Ryan, that I thought is very important. The Patriots were without a lot of players today. So were the Bills, though. The Bills were missing a few people. They were out without Josh Norman, whatever you think of him. They were out Micah Hyde. They're, in my opinion, Pro Bowl caliber safety. They're still without a one technique that I think that is the missing ingredient for what this defense needs to really become what it's. I've seen a lot of people talking about, Ed Oliver, Quinton Jefferson, some of the edge rushers. I think that all of those guys become better when you fix this one problem, and that's that one technique role. I love Harrison Phillips. I met with him out at the Buffalo store this offseason when he was rehabbing. We had a bit of a back and forth on camera, and it was great. And I'm a big fan of his. He's a great person. And you root for guys like that, especially guys that have been hurt, that have gone through those kinds of things. He was getting bounced around out there today like a ping pong ball. And part of you wonders, how healthy is he? How much back is he from that ACL? They got to figure that out. And obviously they missed Vernon Butler, I think, a little bit today. I thought he started to play better over the last couple of weeks, but there's a lot of question marks on this defense. And now we're in this period, this next 3 or 4 days, where it's almost the last gasp from a trading perspective to answer some of these questions.
Yeah, go get Delvin Tomlinson. Go see what the price is at least. If you can get a true one technique, like you said, it makes the issues that the linebacker play, it kind of covers them up a little bit. It makes them easier for them to make plays, to come up and make those plays, because the Bills have not had that consistent player there. You can go find some more depth at linebacker if you want to. A guy like Thomas Davis in Washington might make a lot of sense. He's been inactive a little bit there. Yes, he's older. Yes, you could say, oh gosh, another former Carolina Panther. Well, maybe, but you want to find a guy that can come in and contribute immediately if that's what you're looking for. But again, I'm going to these comments and someone said this is a 4-4 team at best. No cohesion on offense and the defense is dreadful. We are not ready yet. This is not a 4-4 team at best. This is a 6-2 team. That is literally their record right now. They are 6-2. They lost to the Chiefs. Yes, they lost to the Titans. Those are the types of games that fans are going to say, well, we're not a legitimate contender until we win on one of those games. If you said that, I'd say, okay, I get that. You have to go and beat the best if you want to be considered the best. But this is not a 4-4 team. It's a 6-2 team. They're winning the close games. They're making plays when it matters most. Matt mentioned Josh Norman. Norman made a big play in a game to help Buffalo win. Justin Zimmer made a play today to help Buffalo win. This is a 6-2 team. It may not be pretty. They're not getting style points out there. But at the end of the day, they're in first place in the AFC East with the Dolphins, close on, staying close right now. But the Bills have a real chance here to pull away. Now, does their schedule get tougher? And do they play more of these Super Bowl contending like teams? Absolutely. So now over this next span of games, it's up to the Bills to win two of these games and show that they can legitimately hang. I get that, but don't say they're a 4-4 team. They're 6-2, literally their record.
How many games would you say that the Bills will be favored in down the stretch? Next week, the line's already out. They're not. I don't think they'll be favored on the road against the Cardinals. I think they'll be favored against the Chargers at home, not at the Niners. I would even say that they might not be favored at the Steelers, depending on how that stretch of 4 games goes at home on Sunday Night Football. Then it's the Broncos. I think they'll be favored over them, and they'll be favored over the Patriots and then the Dolphins. But like you mentioned, this is a tough stretch. This is the defining stretch of their season, and it starts next week. And I think there's got to be a bit of excitement in that, because I feel like even with the level of teams that you're going to go up against in the next couple weeks, it's exciting because I think they're all in their own ways, especially the Seahawks game. The Seahawks defense is not scary by any stretch of the imagination. I think, if the weather's okay, which, I'm not looking I don't have the forecast in front of me, but I can't imagine it'd be much worse than it was out there today, wind wise. I think that you get this offense, maybe get back going. Maybe you get John Brown a little bit healthier. Josh Allen mentioned it after the game today. John Brown's still not 100%. That's a big piece. You can't just throw that out. You can't just take the body of work that you have from that first month, those first 4 games, and what we saw happen with this offense against a couple good defenses in there. I think the Niners did a pretty good job against Patrick Mahomes, or the Raiders did a pretty good job against Patrick Mahomes. I think the Rams still do have a good defense. They did a good job against Tua today. It was just Jared. I saw somebody tweet Jared Peterman about Jared Goff, which I thought was funny. So I think that, they're going to be in every game that they play the rest of the way, I think, especially if they can make some of the changes that they need to make. But yeah, I think what we're just seeing, Ryan, is just a fan base that now has been conditioned to expect from their team, expect something from their team. And expectations this week were that you're playing a bad Patriots team, that we're down a bunch of guys, and you should beat them convincingly. And when that happens, I understand it. But I said it going into this game. I predicted 20-17, and I got to find the tweet. I'm not going to go back through my mentions at this point, but because it was all back, I think it was on Friday. They're like, what are you, 20-17? Talk about low expectations. This is a division game. They haven't won this game against the Patriots in 8 years. The games are always like this. The last 3 years, they've been like this with Sean McDermott here. I think you take this win, You get out of town, or you stay in town because you're going to play Seattle next week, and you get to work on Seattle like Josh Allen said, because this is a massive game. Can you imagine sitting here Sunday next week at the same time if they beat the Seattle Seahawks in a shootout? And just imagine how you're going to feel then.
Yeah, if that happens, I think fans should be really excited. And I saw someone else say, is Trey White going to follow DK Metcalf? Well, he could, but then you still have Lockett. They have a great 1-2 at wide receiver. It's going to be a game that I think Seattle's going to put up some points, but we also saw, Cam Newton look like a legitimate NFL quarterback against that Seahawks secondary. And Newton is not the same MVP type player that he was a few years ago. It looks like he's shot putting the football a lot of the time now, yet he went off against that secondary. I think Josh Allen can do the same. Josh Allen has a little bit more mobility at this point in his career, so he can keep plays alive a little bit longer. He can get the ball out to those wide receivers. So this could end up being a shootout, weather depending there. Going back to your earlier question, how many games are they favored for? Yeah, the next one might be the Chargers game. And if you're a Chargers fan, God bless you. Every week they get out to these big leads, and then every week they blow them, just like they did today. They end up losing to Denver after they had a pretty sizable lead there. So that's a game the Bills can win. But if the Bills go 500 over the second half of this season, you're talking about a 10-6 football team, which that's where I had them at the end of the year. I had them winning 10 games, saying it was more impressive 10 wins because of the schedule, and you're probably going to win the AFC East with 10 wins. And if you don't, I would still like to think you're in the playoffs with 10 wins. So, take it easy. You're 6-2. That's a good record to have at that midway point. You have a tough horizon of games ahead of you, but someone else just said it in the comments. Hey, the 49ers game, you don't know what they're going to be at because of the Kittle injury. You don't know what they're going to be at because of Jimmy G, who's going to be playing quarterback there. Now, Shanahan does a really good job getting any quarterback prepared, it seems like, in San Francisco. But that's another thing. Injuries play such a big role on a week-to-week basis in this league. Last year, I think most of us had that Steelers game as a loss for Buffalo because we didn't see Duck Hodges starting at quarterback in that game back before the season began. So you don't know how it's going to pan out, but be happy with where they are right now. They're in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny, and that's what you want with your team at this point in the season.
I seen a comment in here from Mary on Facebook. Thank you for everybody watching and participating. With our lack of salary cap, do you see Brandon Beane making any moves before Tuesday trade deadline? I do think they're going to make a move, and maybe it's just Darren Lee, which, by the way, is not done yet. He's not officially signed to the Bills roster yet. They're obviously with COVID protocols. It's a different game that they have to play. It takes a little bit longer, but I do think that they're going to make multiple roster moves. I mean, they've been pretty active in kind of looking to upgrade their roster where they can. And Brandon even said it recently in his most recent interview. I think it was Matthew Fairburn in The Athletic that wrote it about what they're never going to be a time when they're sitting on their hands. Now, I saw another comment in here about Miles Jack. I think it's a $27 million dead cap hit that the Jags will take if they trade him, which is astronomical. I know they're looking to rebuild and maybe get that contract off. It's going to be tough for the Bills to trade for a contract like that. In my opinion, they'd have to involve Trent Murphy and maybe another salary. It could get a little bit tricky. I'm not a salary cap expert by any stretch of the imagination, but adding a sizable contract like that, I think could be difficult. But you mentioned it earlier, a Dalvin Tomlinson from the Giants, or, a similar type of, solid player that fills a need, I think is what the Bills should be looking for. All right, let's get to a couple things here before we go. Any other questions before we get into maybe final thoughts that you've seen?
Scanning through, I'll have to look, but I haven't seen any recently because I answered the one about Trey White and following. So no, I don't see any, but if anyone has any questions, now's the time. Oh, what do you guys think about trading Trent Murphy and a 5th round pick to Atlanta for Grady Jarrett?
I mean, go ahead.
Well, I don't even know if Jarrett would be the guy you would target because they really like Jarrett, and he'd be one of those pieces that they probably want to keep. But there's a Tyler Davidson there that you could probably bring in. There's another younger player there too that plays that one technique. So maybe they are a team you talk with. I just don't know if it's for Grady Jarrett. I think if the Bills could get Trent Murphy and trade him away and get some of that contract off the books, they would do it. Would they trade him back to a team like Washington? Because I saw someone say Ryan Kerrigan, please. Well, listen, they already have a lot of Ryan Kerrigans on this roster, guys making big money that aren't delivering regularly. Now, I like Ryan Kerrigan, the player, but with the cap situation where they're at, the Bills would have to offset it with a move like Murphy getting sent with them as well. So, it'll be interesting. Like Matt said, I think the Bills do make I think they make one trade, but like Matt said, they're not going to sit on their hands either. They're going to look at the waiver wire. They're going to keep bringing guys in. It wasn't that long ago that there were finalists for Le'Veon Bell. So they're out there. They're always looking to see who gets released, who's on a practice squad, who's someone we could take here, upgrade there. It might not be those flashy players that everyone wants to get. And I get it. I like Miles Jack's game a lot. I would love to bring a guy like that in. But you might end up settling for a Darren Lee. You might end up settling for cornerbacks that have played in the system, that know this system. It's just the way it is. If you want someone that can come in and play sooner rather than later, you need people who are familiar with the terminology, familiar with what the coaches are looking for, and someone you can kind of plug in right away.
Great stuff from Ryan as always. Hey, we are ascending here in numbers, so I hate to cut this thing off, but we have go back and once we end and you can watch the show back, and let us know if maybe you'd like us to start a little bit later. Because I would be fine with doing this also. We're still messing with the times. If 7:45 to 8:30 right up until Sunday Night Football, if that works better for you, you could throw it on the TV right before the game starts. If you have the YouTube app on there, let us know. We talked about Worley a little bit. He was in for a visit. It's going to take some time, and so I think that we'll cover much more of that on Wednesday. We're working. I'm going to hopefully have a couple guests on Wednesday because this is a big game, and I almost want to turn this into a huge Seattle week. We'll do a Seattle preview, try to get a Seattle writer at the end of the week. But we'll also talk a lot about that on Wednesday. So maybe if you have anybody that you'd like to see, I'm working on a few people right now. But DM me, leave a comment on the YouTube page or Facebook or whatever, and we'll be back on Wednesday night. That's it, Ryan. Anything else from you?
No, just looking forward to Seahawks week because this is, the Bills always say we're looking ahead to next week. We're looking to this next game. It's one game at a time. But this is a big game. Again, this is one of those measuring stick games where the Bills have failed twice this year against the Chiefs, against the Titans, where they can make a big statement with a win against a team like the Seahawks, a team that a lot of people are saying right now it may be the favorite in the NFC to come out of that conference to represent them in the Super Bowl. And there's a few teams, but they're a legitimate contender at this point in time.
All right. The last comment we will address is Ryan's analysis is excellent, and you are darn tootin'. You are correct, and that's my guy right there. Always bringing it after the games on Wednesdays, when we do Thursdays, when we do Tuesdays, when we do Fridays. We're all over the place. We're always doing Shout Football Podcast. And if you can, like I mentioned earlier in the show, find us on the audio platforms, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Apple. Subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps us out. We're growing this podcast. It is becoming its own animal, and we love it. And we love sharing these interactive moments with all of you. Buffalo Bills 24, New England Patriots 21. Bills are in driver's seat in the AFC East, middle of the season, exactly where you wanted to be. We'll talk more about it on Wednesday night. Head over to Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com. Check out all of our stories from today. We'll have more tomorrow, and throughout the week, we'll hear from the coaching staff tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, a couple more hours, a little more football. We'll see you on Wednesday night. Take care, everyone.
Ready for football? With every game a home game, Tops is ready for you with its TV a Day giveaway. For 6 weeks, every day you shop is a new chance to win a massive 70-inch 4K TV. Shop Tops for the best deals in town, in-store, or online.